Zo, Nicky, dat is lekker retro, deze intro.
Philip Bloemendaal.
Ja, maar dit is het beginjaren van Universal.
Dit is echt de Universal.
Dan heb je toch dat RKO of zo, wat dan altijd in beeld stond of zo?
Ja, en dan lekker dat knisperende van dat vinylgeluid.
Ja, want...
Weet je trouwens hoe ze op de naam Universal zijn gekomen toen de tijd?
Ik heb wel eens een urban legend gehoord over een verhuiswagen of zo die voorbij reed.
Een loodgieter.
Of een loodgietersbedrijf?
Een soort, eigenlijk een bedrijf, zo'n construction bedrijf, wat ook in rioleringen deed, et cetera.
Een soort Universal Plumbing.
Ja, eigenlijk wat je ook die grap ziet bij Super Mario, die film.
Oh ja, inderdaad.
Maar daar stond dus op Universal Plumbing, Universal Piping heette het geloof ik. En toen dacht hij, ik ga de naam Universal gebruiken en zo is het.
Ja, want dit is aflevering 79 van de Upload podcast.
Bij de Upload podcast. Ik ben Nicky.
Ik ben Dennis.
Nou, zo, het introotje ook. Ja, want Walt Disney Studios bestaat 100 jaar.
Van harte gefeliciteerd.
Gefeliciteerd.
Maar eigenlijk is er een studio die veel ouder is. Die een hele tijd geleden, in 2012, al zijn 100-jarig jubileum vierde. Maar waar eigenlijk helemaal niet zoveel reuring omheen zat. En wij dachten, misschien is het leuk om die geschiedenis te duiken. En wat we ook wel leuk leek is... Kijk, er gaan alleen maar succesverhalen nu over die Walt Disney Company. Over alle mooie verhalen en alle emoties en alles wat het oproept. Maar in die 100 jaar is een hoop gebeurd. Er zijn successen geweest. Er zijn bijna faillissementen geweest van de studio's. Er zijn bijna overnames geweest. Maar Walt is ook een keer ontslagen in die tijd.
En bij niet een kleine partij.
Bij Universal.
Bij Universal, ja. En dan mochten wij toevallig een Universal podcast zijn.
Dus wij dachten, ik zie een wond, wij hebben zout, we gaan het even... Nee, maar het is leuk om daarin te duiken. Maar wat ons nog veel leuker leek, is om dat samen met iemand te doen.
Ja, met iemand die je wel een beetje van weet.
Nou, iemand die een bloedverwant is van de oprichter van Universal. We gaan even overschakelen op het Engels. So, we are very proud to welcome now to the show a Hollywood historian, host of the Universally Me
YouTube channel.
Yeah, YouTube channel. And the niece of Carl Laemmle, Antonia Carlotta.
Yay!
Hi.
Do I pronounce it right? I mean, Carlotta, it sounds Italian to us, but...
Yes, yeah, Antonia Carlotta.
Carlotta.
Yeah, okay.
I'll let you guys in on a fun fact. Carlotta, when I was born, was actually my middle name, and I'm probably getting ahead of myself here, but I come from a long line of Carls. So Carl Laemmle and Carl Jr., Carla, Carolina, Carlotta was my grandmother, and that's why I'm Carlotta.
Yeah. That's the first fun fact we already know on the show.
That's the first fun fact because, well, what I say in the introduction, you make Universally Me. I'm very eager to know what made you want to start doing that. I mean, as I said in the introduction, you're the niece of Carl Laemmle.
So Carl Laemmle started Universal Studios. And not only did he start Universal Studios, but he won a Supreme Court case against Thomas Edison. And he saved about 300 Jewish families by bringing them to the United States as Hitler rose to power in Germany. Mm-hmm. And even though he did these three incredible things, most people have never heard of him. And even myself, through most of my childhood, didn't know much about Carl Laemmle. Other than little things my mom would say here and there, I didn't have a sense of who he was or what he did. As I got older, especially as I moved to LA in my teenage years and started seeing the impact of Carl Laemmle all around me and getting context around his accomplishments, I started to feel the injustice of his name not being known and his work not being known. And that's what made me decide to, first off, learn as much as I can and dive into it, and then start a YouTube series sharing his work and his legacy and hoping that more of him lives on.
Yeah, because, well, we know now that your great uncle Carl Laemmle, he founded Universal Studios back in 1912. But from what age did you realize that your family had such a big influence in the Hollywood film industry?
Yeah, not until I was in high school or even college. My mom had pictures around the house of my family, not just Carl, but Junior Laemmle, my great-grandfather Eddie, who was a director. She had pictures of relatives on film sets and shooting movies, but I don't think I realized like they were Universal Studios movies. It was just like, oh yeah, that was my family. They were involved in movies. And once I started going to Universal, once I saw people whose like everyday life was influenced by the work of Carl Laemmle, that's when it really sank in for me.
Yeah, that's also a question we ask all our guests. What was the first time you visited like Universal Studios or maybe the theme park or the studios? Could you take us back to that first time?
Yeah, you know what's so crazy is I can't remember the first time that I visited Universal Studios Hollywood. My first clear Universal memory is going to the opening day of Islands of Adventure in Florida back when I was like 10 years old. And I think because that day, I don't know, it was the opening day and we got this really cool private tour and I felt like I was the first one to go on all of the rides. It really sticks out for me. I cannot remember the first time I went to Universal in Hollywood, which is so strange.
So if that's your first memory about Islands of Adventure opening, you're also known for providing like information for new tour guides in Universal Studios Hollywood. Around that time, did you already visit that park after that?
So, I mean, I'm positive that as a kid, when my parents, you know, when we took trips to LA, I'm positive that we went to Universal, and in high school and college, like, of course I went. But I didn't, again, because I was still learning my family's part in the creation of it. I wasn't necessarily at the time like meeting all the tour guides and getting to know everybody behind the scenes, because I felt almost as much like a regular guest as everybody else. It was once I started my YouTube series, which I had no clue if anybody was going to watch or listen to or find interesting. It was once I started it that people started reaching out to me saying, hey, I'm a tour guide at this studio and I would really love to get to know you. Or, hey, I work in this department at Universal and I would love to share this part of my work with you. So it was through
actually
starting
backwards.
Yes, it was totally backwards. And one thing that I try to be open about on my channel is like, I'm not the foremost expert on film history or Universal history. I'm becoming that over time as I learn more and more. But so much of my channel was about me learning about my family and then sharing what I'm learning as I'm learning it. So I know that there are people who grew up with the monsters and grew up with the movies who it's been a part of their DNA since day one. I'm still on my journey.
If you look, because you say you're looking to a lot of fun facts and you're finding out a lot of new things about your family and about the studios and about the history, can you name maybe a fun Universal fact that a lot of people don't know?
One fact that I love in the park in Hollywood is, so we know that area around Universal is very hilly. And if you guys have been there, I'm sure you know there are all of the escalators that take you from the upper lot to the lower lot and vice versa. One of the reasons that particular area is so hilly is because 100 years ago, that was essentially the trash dump of Universal. That's where they just threw things when they were done, which includes, I'm sure, equipment and scripts and cameras and all the normal stuff that you would expect on a movie studio. But at the time, they also had the biggest zoo on this side of the Mississippi. So along with all of the normal movie stuff, there's also like animal bones under there.
So maybe a T-Rex.
Potentially.
and
Jurassic Park.
Yeah, and I mean, if a lot of trash is down the hill, then it's only fitting that the new Fast and Furious coaster will be built on that hill. I mean, yeah.
We're not big fans of Fast and the Furious franchise.
I mean, the circle is round in that in that case. What's important, because we know that the Walt Disney Company is now celebrating their 100th birthday, and they're mostly focused on the big successes that they had. And we want to talk about you also with the relationship between Walt Disney and your great uncle Carl. Could you take us maybe back in time and how that relationship started?
Yeah, so I guess to go all the way back with Walt Disney, he got his career started in Kansas City, I believe, working for a studio called Laugh-O-Gram. And he was making these cartoons that were called Alice's Comedy. They were part real, like they had some real actors in it, part cartoon. But when Laugh-O-Gram went under, Disney essentially used Alice's comedies as a pilot to try to shop around his skills and his talent. So he got hooked up with MJ Winkler, who had been distributing Felix, the cat, at the time. But she was just about to lose him as her client, so she signed on Disney. And Margaret Winkler's husband, Charles Mintz, then essentially took over her business after they got married. I think that's just, I don't know what men did at the time, I guess. And he connected Disney to Carl Laemmle at Universal. So Uncle Carl was looking for a cartoon. He just wanted to get in on the action, and he felt like cats were overdone. So he had his heart set on a rabbit, and Walt Disney got the job and started working with Ub Iwerks, who I feel like deserves a mention and recognition as well.
Definitely.
The first iteration of Oswald was not super popular. He was really dumpy and grumpy and not a happy character. I think Uncle Carl was hoping for something more like light and fun, like Charlie Chaplin or Douglas Fairbanks. And so they did some revisions, and the new Oswald was a success. And I think some of the things that Disney brought to the table that made him such a success is he really drew him the way that you would shoot a live action movie. So he gave like depth and played with light and shadow, and he created, you know, a character that you would really empathize with or connect to emotionally, which now we just kind of expect, but at the time, like, that was really revolutionary.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, if you look at the time with the Levergram Studios in the 1920s, then at the moment there was the big break between Walt and Carl.
To like the end of their
the breakup. The breakup. Where did the Walt Disney Company started basically as a real successful enterprise?
So the breakup really comes down to Charles Mintz, as far as I can tell. So Oswald is a success. Disney's done a fantastic job. He is going in for his contract negotiations with Charles Mintz, expecting to get a big raise. But little does he know that Charles Mintz has already hired the rest of his team behind his back. He's already locked in their contracts. And when Disney asks for more money, Charles Mintz instead offers him less. So Disney says, all right, I'm walking. And as the story goes, he thought that he'd be able to walk and take Oswald with him. But Universal owned Oswald. So Disney's kind of out on the street without a job and without a rabbit. And that's when he said that he would never create another character that he didn't own the rights to. And he went to create Mickey Mouse. So
you
kind
wouldn't
of
expect Disney to ask for more money.
Something great.
Yeah, you would never expect Disney to ask for more money.
No, more
especially nowadays. I mean, for the price you could buy Mickey Mouse or Oswald in that time, you can now buy one-day admission without parking.
But it's funny how Mickey Mouse actually started as a rabbit, and before the rabbit, a cat. So we went from a cat to a rabbit to a mouse.
Yeah, but still, it's quite a successful mouse. Looking to the successful mouse, you also mentioned once in an interview that you admire the history of the Walt Disney Company and how the company still connects to their history. Is that something you think Universal could and should do more?
Yes. If I had one wish in the world, that would be it.
Are there any references to Carl Laemmle in the parks? I know in Hollywood there's a statue.
So they've recently started incorporating some references to Carl Laemmle. There's a Carl Laemmle parking garage on the back lot, and there is a small sitting area kind of off to the side near the entrance that's called Laemmle Court. But that's about it. And I feel like, you know, one of the reasons that people love Disney and connect to Disney so much is because they've created this, I don't know, incredible myth of story of Walt Disney, this person to connect to and to, I don't know, you just admire his story and you love Walt as a person so much. And I feel like Uncle Carl was such a lovable, happy, jovial person. Like, there's so much to connect to and love there. And I feel like Universal's really dropped the ball by not incorporating him into the studio more.
But does your family still some sort of own rights, or at what point did they lost, like, because Universal was sold many times to other corporations? Is there anything known about that history when that stopped?
Yeah, it's basically how did your family lost
Universal, yeah.
Yeah, so my family lost the studio all the way back in like 1936, 1937 with the movie Showboat. So Uncle Carl was running the studio for the first, oh gosh, I should really do quick math here, but like 15 years. And then he actually gave control of the studio to his son Junior as a 21st birthday present. And Junior's the one who's really behind all of the monster movies that we know and love now. So Dracula, Frankenstein, The Bride of Frankenstein, The Invisible Man, that's all done under Junior's leadership. Where Uncle Carl was about putting out as many movies as possible and being really frugal with his budget, Junior said, let's do fewer movies, bigger budgets. And he started taking out loans for Universal for the first time. That was something his dad had never done. So when it came time for the movie Showboat, the movie was going over budget. It was a little bit behind schedule. And they put up the studio as collateral, thinking essentially nobody would have the money to call it in and nobody would want to make good on that. But Showboat went just a little bit long, and Standard Capital, I think, is then who exercised their right to buy the studio.
That's like an investment firm, right? Or a bank?
Yeah, yes. I think I'm not exactly sure which, but something like that. And Showboat, when it came out, was a huge success. If they were just able to see it through another month or two, my family would still have Universal, but they just didn't have time on their side. Yeah.
You just mentioned Carl Laemmle Jr. directed like Universal monster films. You're also very fascinated by those films, right? Nowadays.
Yes, very much. I think I think there's just so much to love about the monsters. They're not just purely these scary characters, but they all have this, I don't know, rich inner world and sympathy, like all of these ways that you can find parts of yourself in the monsters. So that's why I really love them. And I think that they were, again, so ahead of their time in capturing audiences in a way that had never been done before. You have people getting sick and fainting in their seats and running out of theaters because the movies, were so scary and the monsters were so horrifying just in a way that audiences had never known.
And they're coming back right now to the parks.
Totally. I am excited that the monsters are starting to get new life again. There were probably 30 or 40 years where the monsters got a little forgotten because of the Hays Code, which was like film censorship, and horror movies just weren't really being made as much. I've learned that sort of in the, I think, 80s, they started being shown on TV again and started capturing a new audience. And then again, now they're doing some not so great remakes, but also finding ways to incorporate them into the park and at least trying to experiment with them, which makes me excited.
Yeah, especially with Epic Universe coming up, with a big Universal Monsters part of the universe, basically.
I think the last best remake was The Mummy franchise.
No, that was, but...
based on the old characters?
Yeah, but a couple of years ago, the Tom Cruise movie with the Mummy, that bombed at the box office.
That was a terrible movie. Yeah. I really enjoyed The Invisible Man that came out in early 2020. I thought that was a fantastic example of how you can revamp the movies right.
Yeah, but I think other than you, not a lot of people have seen the actual movie, did they?
I think the new Invisible Man did pretty well.
Yeah?
I think so.
Europe. I think
not in Europe. It was I don't know if it even made it into the cinemas here.
Maybe it's
what I would question is I saw it in the US February of 2020. We went into lockdown in March, so maybe you guys never got a theatrical
then we no.
Definitely didn't,
because then of course we went into lockdown, and then we had a time where we in cinemas we still saw Jaws and Jurassic Park and Free Willy and all those kind of movies came back. for no reason. But I think
check out the new Invisible Man.
I will.
I think
I'll put it on my list.
It's fun.
I'll put it on my list. If it's on Sky Showtime, then I'll definitely watch it. If we just go back, because I'm also interested, of course, like I said, Walt Disney Company celebrating a lot of things. Are there still people in your family that remember the relationship between your Uncle Carl and Walt Disney? Is there still stories going around?
So, I don't think that Disney and Carl themselves were that close, right? It was a business relationship. And I think mostly they were working through Margaret Winkler and Charles Ince, right? So
because there's that famous
weren't...
drawing with
Yes.
Walt Disney sending to Carl Laemmle, thanking them for their cooperation, basically.
Very much. So at least in some way, I mean, I know there's no bitterness and they must have had some relationship, but no, I really haven't seen much to say anything else any which way. I've never seen a picture of the two.
No, that's what I want to say. You can't find any pictures of them together. But sometimes in a family, there's those stories that at a barbecue, someday maybe Uncle Walt and Uncle Carl. I find it very funny that you talk about him like Uncle Carl, like very lovingly. And I think that's also something, if you compare to the Walt Disney Company, like you mentioned before. Sometimes I hear people talking about Walt Disney, and those people our age, like in their 30s, and they're talking about Walt Disney as if it's their father or their own uncle that just died. And almost getting tears in their eyes if they hear or read anything about it or hear his voice. And I agree on you that Universal should do that more. Should invest more in the history about that. So I agree with you on that one. What I'm also curious about, because we talked about your family basically losing Universal. There might still be some rights or benefits from the Universal catalog for the family, or is it all now because of it's in the public domain?
I mean, my family doesn't see any benefit, no royalties, no nothing.
There's no hidden agenda with the Invisible Man for you.
No.
No free annual passes, nothing?
Nothing, no. Again, once I started doing Universally Me, I've been really fortunate that other people who work at Universal will sometimes now reach out to me, and I've grown these great relationships with people through it. I have been invited to say some events that are on the lot and things like that, but that's the extent of my benefits.
Yeah, it's something.
Of course, and I'm grateful for it, and I love it.
Yeah, I mean, that's great. And if we look back, I think we can all agree that the success of the Walt Disney Company, it all started with a disagreement and a rabbit, basically.
If we look to the parks nowadays, like fun facts, do you have any favorite rides? Do you still visit the parks?
I do still visit the parks. I just went maybe about 3 weeks ago now. I love The Mummy is one of my favorite rides. And the new Jurassic World.
Yeah. We have a weak spot for Jurassic. I mean, that's like our Star Wars.
Oh, really?
Yeah. You have to be honest. We are talking about making a show about Jurassic for 3 years now, but we just love it so much that I don't think we dare because we're afraid that we miss out on something. Jurassic is so special. And especially the rides that made us fall in love, and the movies that made us fall in love with Universal. And it's amazing. And you're talking about The Mummy, then you're talking about the Hollywood version, right?
The Universal Hollywood. I haven't been to any international Universal Studios, and I'm not even positive if I've been to Florida since that first time I mentioned.
Well, something to put on the list.
You should go to Epic Universe in 2025. There's a whole dark universe area with the classic monsters, so it would be a perfect fit for you.
I would love to go to that when it opens.
We should go together.
Yeah, we should meet over there.
Then record
put it in
another
your agenda.
Podcast. Yeah.
I'm in. I'll put it in the calendar.
Sounds like a plan. So, Antonia, if people want to know more about you, where can people find you?
The first place I would recommend is my YouTube channel. So you can either type youtube.com/Antonia Carlotta or just type in Universally Me on YouTube. My Instagram @Antonia Carlotta.
We will share some links also.
Yeah, we'll share on our social. We'll share on X. We'll share on Instagram. We'll share in the show notes. We'll plug you everywhere.
Thank you.
So First of all, thank you for coming to our show.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your story. And
It was our chance to actually talk to someone from Universal.
Yeah, from Universal history.
Family, Universal history, of course.
Yeah. You're sort of Universal royalty in a way.
Oh, no, but I mean, thank you. I appreciate it.
Royalty without a crown.
Yes,
Feels so bold.
Yes. You need a scepter, you need a crown, you need everything. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Zo, dan zijn we weer terug in het
Ja,
Nederlands.
maar wat een leuk gesprek.
Was
Wat een leuke
heel
meid.
leuk. Ja, leuk. Vlot. We hebben nog nooit zo'n snel interview gehad.
Nee, ja, normaal moeten we eigenlijk eerst aan onze gasten vaak uitleggen...
hoe de technische dingen werken.
Nee, die koptelefoon hoort dus op je hoofd.
Ja.
En dan, Jim, ja, dankjewel Jim. Nee, maar dit was echt superleuk. En nou ja, weet je, die Rolodex wordt steeds voller. Als wij straks een week naar Los Angeles gaan, kunnen we
Ja,
eens
dan
naar
moeten we iedereen
pretpark,
uitnodigen.
dan moeten we iedereen op de koffie.
Ja, dat wordt lastig. Nee, maar superleuk dat we een nazaat hebben kunnen vinden van de oprichter van Universal.
Ja, en dat zij dus als Hollywood-historian ook echt bezig is om dat verhaal een beetje te ontdekken van de eigen familie. En,
niet zozeer ook wel weer de familie promoten, maar toch daar een soort van beschaafd nog in zijn. Hoe zeg je het? Een beetje gereserveerd.
Ja.
Dat merk je wel.
Ja, dit zou niks voor mij zijn. Dit.
Nee, jij had overal posters geplakt, dat weet ik alweer. Die hele auto vol.
Ik had daar die entree gelopen. Weet jij wel wie ik ben?
Ja.
Zonder mij, mijn voorhuis, was dit er niet geweest.
Nee. Maar het wordt wel tijd, Universal wel iets meer.
Maar vind ik echt.
Als het nu alleen afgedaan wordt met een klein pleintje en een
parkeergarage.
En een parkeergarage, ja, dat vind ik wel.
Nee, dat mag meer. Terwijl bijvoorbeeld in Florida heb je het Lew R. Wasserman statue. Dus dat is de man die eigenlijk in de jaren 80 Universal weer terug heeft gebracht aan de top. Ja, dat is eigenlijk een beetje gek. Dat is een beetje alsof je in Disneyland Parijs een Michael Eisner standbeeld neerzet. Nee, maar gewoon superleuk. Ga haar ook volgen online.
Ja.
We gaan natuurlijk even de linkjes delen in de show notes. Zoals
Sowieso,
ook.
ja, daar kan je er meer over vinden. Maar ze hebben echt een leuk YouTube-kanaal. Het is een beetje andere inkijk bij
Maar
Universal.
ook dat weer, een beetje meer van deze tijd. Gewoon in 8-9 minuten, stukje historie, stukje ding. Het gaat over de film, het gaat over...
Classic Monsters,
Ja,
over de
superleuk.
familiegeschiedenis. Echt superleuk kanaal. Ik kijk weer uit naar de volgende aflevering.
Ik ook.